Hi, I'm James, you're watching Tabletop Dungeon, and this is Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress, a dungeon crawler set in the 40k universe for 1 to 5 players from Games Workshop. Like any game in the 40k universe, there's a lot of lore and story behind it. There's even an accompanying book. So before we get into the meat of the game, I think it's worth a quick chat about what a Blackstone Fortress even is. The Blackstone Fortresses, of which there are a few, are epic structures floating in the void of space. At various points in history, they've been used by both the Imperium and Chaos forces as massive naval bases. However, during the Gothic War, they seemed to awake somehow and displayed signs of being sentient. The 7th and newest Blackstone Fortress is the one that we find ourselves at for this game. It's on the edge of known space and a particularly difficult place to get to, so only the bravest of souls find themselves here. Now, because the Blackstone Fortress contains untold riches in the form of ancient archaeotechnologies, rogue traders, adventurers, and general space pirate types flock to them, and that's where you'll find our adventuring party for this game. Just outside of the Blackstone Fortress is Precipice, a spaceport constructed to house, feed, and generally act as a hub for the adventurers who are brave enough to come here. Inside the Blackstone Fortress, adventurers get around using a maglev system. However, it's a little bit unreliable, and you never quite know where it's going to come out. This sets up the game as a campaign-based system, but with a deck of random dungeons which you'll encounter as you play. However, your campaign will progress as you play through those dungeons and collect clues in order to unlock the special strongholds and the final mission. As a cooperative campaign, each game is played with 4 explorers. Playing it solo as one player, you will control every one of the explorers yourself. With 2 players, you each get 2 characters, or with 4 players, you get 1 each. In addition, there's a 5-player mode where one player takes on the role of Dungeon Master, and they'll be moving the enemies around. However, enemy movements and actions are still going to be controlled by the AI table to a large extent, just that the 5th player will be rolling the dice. Of course, in your own games you can house rule that to give them more autonomy if you wish. A campaign consists of up to 12 expeditions, with each expedition consisting of up to 4 combat scenarios and up to 4 challenge cards. Now, the challenge cards vary greatly. They could be a very specific type of scenario, like all of you face off in melee against this one monster type, or they might be more of a push your luck style chance card. They're really there just to break up the combat scenarios a bit. There's nothing too serious on them, and you can usually skip them if you want to. The purpose of the expedition is to then gather clue cards which you find in the discovery deck, which you then trade in to access one of the stronghold missions, of which there are 4. And after you've taken on the strongholds, you can then attempt the final mission contained in this envelope, which I won't and can't show you because I haven't actually got that far yet. Additionally, you'll find a legacy deck of 12 cards, and these act as a sort of timer or countdown. Each time you return from an expedition, you're going to reveal a new legacy card. If there are no legacy cards left because you've revealed them all, i.e. you've done 12 expeditions already, then you fail the game. Legacy cards add a little bit of a twist into the game, or they introduce a new enemy type, or they simply act as a countdown, which means no effect, but you're still losing another legacy card. Each time you finish an expedition, you'll head back to Precipice, where you can heal any wounds, take some special actions on the spaceships, or do some trading for items to use in future expeditions. Now, one neat inclusion are these specially branded stasis bags, which are clear on one side and opaque on the other. If at any point you don't want to carry on playing, you want to effectively save your game state as it is, you can go ahead and put your characters into here, including their cards and inspiration points, so you can carry on again as is next time. So let's talk about combat encounters, because they are really the meat of the game. And after that, I'll go on and explain what I do and don't like about Blackstone Fortress. When a combat exploration card is drawn from the deck, like this one, it'll have a map as well as the locations for enemy spawn points. To fully set up your encounter, you'll then need to draw some random encounter cards, which will specify which enemies are going to spawn from which point. If there's a 4th spawn point, it may be another group of enemies, or it may be a twist on the game rules. Each round you roll a set of 5 destiny dice, which are a common pool of action dice anyone can use, as well as each character's own action dice. Initiative is randomized using these initiative cards, but you can change it around a little. You can either swap with a teammate, which is called covering fire, or you can trade one of your action dice for a chance to swap with the closest enemy or any enemy. Now, this is a really important game mechanic because sometimes the initiative and the cards just aren't going to fall into your favor. And if you've had a particularly bad previous round, you may be teetering on death. Then in initiative order, players are going to take their actions according to the dice rolls that they made. Basic actions such as moving or attempting to heal a wound can be done on a 1 or higher. On a 4+, any explorer can also call the maglev chamber or search a discovery marker that they're standing on. Then each explorer will have detailed on their card their own combat actions that they can take, as well as any special actions they might have. Most actions then involve rolling some kind of dice, specified by 3 different levels and each color coded. The most basic level is the grey D6, of which only 2 faces even offer a success. Next up are the purple D8s, which are a little bit better, followed by the light blue D10s, which offer a much better chance of succeeding. So I want to just pause here briefly and say, obviously, rolling dice is a huge part of this game, and if that's not a mechanic that you like in any game, then you're probably not going to like Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. Of course, there are certain things you can do to mitigate the levels of chance, such as putting yourself in cover behind these white lines, which will reduce the damage taken from enemy shots. And you can also prepare actions by keeping one of your dice in reserve. So even if you don't see an enemy at the time, as soon as one comes into view and tries to take an action, you'll get a shot off at them. Now, obviously, if it was purely a game of random numbers, I don't think it would be fun. But still, even with all the perfect planning and strategy in the world, you are going to have turns of just purely bad luck, where things could go terribly, horribly wrong. If this much chance is really not something you're going to like, then stay away from the game. Moving on, the enemies in Blackstone Fortress are controlled by rolling a d20 and consulting their specific AI table. Each enemy has a unique table detailed on the back of their cards. Now, along the top of the table is the current state of the enemy, whether they're hidden or how close to you they are, and along the left is the dice roll that you get. So after a while, you'll get used to this and you'll barrel through the enemy turn really easily. Now, low rolls typically result in either holding, falling back, or taking an aimed shot, whereas higher rolls tend to be either attacking twice, charging, or doing some sort of unique action. Additionally, if enemy models have been already slain from that unit, you're going to do a reinforcements roll. And if you roll really low on a 1, 2, or a 3, some of those units are going to return to the board. Other than that, enemy units attack in the same way as explorers by rolling specific colored types of dice. However, unlike enemies, when explorers are hit, they do get to make a defense roll. Again, their character sheet will specify which dice they can roll for defense. If they fail to negate those wounds, they are going to take a grievous or a normal wound, each of which will cover up one of their action dice slots. Grievous wounds can't be healed until you go back to Precipice, but normal wounds you can attempt to heal on their next turn. And that basically is Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. So on with a review proper. What do I think of the game? What do I not like about it? Firstly, and this is going to make a lot of serious board gamers groan, I really love the minis. This is Games Workshop, of course, so the minis are absolutely top quality. There are 44 miniatures in total included with the game. Now, those are push fit, so they're relatively easy to put together. However, they are monopose, so you're not going to get much customization. If you play Kill Team as well, or Warhammer 40,000, they also include data sheets in the box for you to then use these minis in those other games. However, it is a little bit restricted as to what factions you can take them in. All of the Blackstone Fortress enemies, for instance, all become part of their own faction. Meanwhile, the explorers can pretty much only be taken as kill team commanders. So you couldn't, for instance, make an entire kill team out of just the explorers. It's a bit awkward, but yes, you can officially use some of these miniatures in other games. I really like the random initiative system. It allows for each turn to be pretty dynamic while still allowing you a little bit of control in the form of covering fire and attempting a gambit. The enemy AI tables are pretty cool, although it can get a little bit tedious if you have, say, all 14 traitor guardsmen on the board that you have to then individually roll for. Generally speaking, it works really well and can lead to some really tense moments where you're facing off against someone and they suddenly bottle it and decide to run off and hide. The action dice system is new to me. I haven't played any Warhammer Quest before, and I think I really like it. The fact that what actions are available to you will depend upon what dice you roll means that you're not going to be pulling off that one-shot fantastic unique skill every single turn. Then again, you might have a really lucky turn where you roll 3 6s and just dominate the board. I love the fact that if you take a wound, then you lose one of your action dice slots. So there are less actions you can take next turn until you've either finished the game and returned to Precipice or managed to heal that wound. I also really like the fact that you can play solo relatively easily. There's not so much difference between the characters that you'll need to spend 10 minutes going through a unique deck of cards each turn, such as in Gloomhaven. With Blackstone Fortress, there are 3 or 4 actions which are very clear that you're going to take, and most of the action goes on the board. You're never going to have that much downtime sitting there thinking about things. It's always going to be pretty fast-paced. Boom, 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 you can get through it. On the downside, as I mentioned, there really is a lot of randomness in this game, and if you're not keen on that, you're not going to like it. Then we should talk about the plot, or rather, the complete lack of it. Blackstone Fortress, or rather the 40k universe as a whole, has a tremendous amount of story behind it, and there is in fact a book that goes with this game that you might also be interested in. However, within the game itself, there is no plot. It is just an entirely randomly generated dungeon crawler. Even on the sort of set-piece stronghold missions, there's only 1 or 2 sentences of flavor text before you start, and that's it. There's no other furthering of the plot or campaign story. Now, I don't know if there's something else on the final mission. As I said, haven't got that far yet, but I suspect not. So either you're going to need to accept that or just make up your own as you go along, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just saying if you wanted to follow along with a bit of story and then play the game and then have a bit of story, you're not going to find that here. This is a pure dungeon crawler of roll the dice, shoot the enemy, loot their bodies, then move on to the next mission and do it all again. Finally, we should probably address the price point, because it is actually priced in the same realm as something like Gloomhaven, yet it only has a fraction of the content. You only need to look at the size of the box to figure that one out. So this is very much a Games Workshop priced product, by which I mean you're paying for the gorgeous minis that are included in the game, which I should mention you're going to need to put together yourself. They come on these 4.5 sprues. You'll need to cut them out, clean them up, and then push them together and onto the bases. It's not too hard, to be honest. You'll be able to manage it, but if you were thinking that you could buy the game and then play it immediately straight out of the box, then you absolutely can't. It's going to take you a good couple of hours at least to fix all these miniatures and put them together. And if you're used to buying 40k miniatures and stuff, you won't be shocked by the price of this game. But if you're used to standard board game prices, then this is probably going to be a bit pricier than you would normally pay. So if you are on a tight budget, if you're not entirely convinced on the game, or if you're not really into the Warhammer 40k universe in general, and if the idea of painting your miniatures just really doesn't appeal, then the value proposition of this game goes down somewhat. On the other hand, if you are a Warhammer 40k player and you've not played Warhammer Quest or any other sort of board games before, I think this is a pretty good entry point into the world of modern board gaming. It can be a gateway game for you, perhaps not for everyone, but for you it probably will be. The randomness of the dice rolls isn't going to put you off, given that it's the bread and butter of Warhammer games. If that's you, I think you'll like it. On a side note, I don't think you're ever going to run out of content for this game. The December issue of White Dwarf, for instance, had a side quest in it, as well as a free item card gift. Probably just a promotion that month for the game, but I expect they'll be publishing more side missions as we go on. And the first expansion pack has already been announced. So it's clear that this game is going to be a big new franchise for Games Workshop, which they keep adding content to. Alright, that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed watching and hearing my thoughts about Blackstone Fortress and that it helped you to make a decision about buying this game or not. If you want to argue or if you have some feedback, then hit me up in the comments and I'll be sure to reply. Now, Tabletop Dungeon is a new channel, so as silly and as insignificant a gesture as it sounds, hitting like really will help so that it indicates to YouTube that you enjoyed the video and you'd like other people to enjoy it too. algorithm be praised. Please consider subscribing. I promise not to spam you with clickbait nonsense and only to release the occasional video of board game reviews, terrain tutorials, and possibly in future some battle reports. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, and until next time.